Good afternoon and welcome to our presentation today of a review of the upcoming special town meeting to be held on Monday, October 19th, 2020 at the Abington High School Middle School auditorium. My name is Shawn Reilly and I'm your town moderator. And joining me today is our town manager, Scott Lambiase. What Scott and I would like to do is kind of read briefly through our special town meeting warrant so we can kind of give you a quick summary of what each article is intended to do and what we're asking voters to consider. If you'd like to read along, you can get on the town's website, abingtonma.gov, and you can download a copy of the special town meeting warrant. There are 27 articles. You can also download a copy of the proposed motions, which we believe will be read to those people who attend town meeting on October 19th. Just like our annual town meeting, which we held just a few months ago, the town meeting will be held in the auditorium, as I mentioned. We will have significant COVID-19 protocols to try to protect all of the voters' health. We want to encourage as many people to come as possible, but we do understand that there is some concern about sharing space with others. So we will again require that all persons who enter the school building wear a mask at all times, that everyone will remain socially distant while in line. We will keep you distant at least 6 feet from other non-family members. And as you are seated in the auditorium, there will be some ushers that will show you where to sit. And we will require that we keep 3 vacant seats between voters and 2 vacant rows between rows that are being used. Husband and wife can sit together, mother and daughter can sit together, but other than that, you need to keep socially distant throughout the town meeting. And we ask that once you are seated, that you remain seated. During the town meeting, if you'd like to speak, you can raise your hand, and once you are recognized, the ushers will bring a microphone to you, which will be wiped and sterilized so that you do not have to go to a microphone or share a microphone with others. This town meeting will also be videotaped by the volunteers at Abington Cam. It will be played back for you the day or two after if you'd like to watch it. And if you would like to look at some of the Finance Committee meetings and planning board meetings and selectmen meetings that have been held in the last 2 or 3 weeks, all concerning and preparing for the town meeting, I would invite you all to go to abingtoncam.tv, the Abington Cam website, where you can then go up to the top and click on channel guide, click on government, and then there's a list of the different boards and all their videos. So you can click on FinCom, Finance Committee, Planning Board, Selectmen, and watch some of the more recent meetings and their discussions about these warrant articles if you'd like to be better informed before you come to town meeting. Mr. Lambiase, our town manager, I want to again welcome you. And if you could first, before we get into the warrant, kind of explain to people about, we just had an annual town meeting. Why are we having a special town meeting?
Well, when I first came into town, just prior to the annual town meeting, COVID hit, and we looked at the budget and our revenue estimates, and we decided, due to the state of the economy and everything being shut down, that we really had to pare down the budget, and we had to be much more conservative on our revenue estimates. Plus, we had a lot of articles that were in that annual town meeting that, in order to make it a smooth and quick and efficient town meeting, we removed those articles. They were things like zoning articles and road acceptance articles. And you'll see we're going to take care of those now. We had always anticipated, and I think we had talked about this at the annual, that our plan was to have a special town meeting. We had hoped maybe we would be in a better condition as far as COVID is concerned by this point, but obviously we're not. But we are coming back for a couple of reasons. One, we want to take care of some of those housekeeping articles and some of those zoning articles. Otherwise, they're just going to pile up on our annual town meeting and make that one much more difficult. Plus, we were very happy to see that when our money from the state came in, Chapter 70 money, which is school aid money and money for unrestricted government aid, those numbers came in much better than we thought. We had really pared down the budget and tightened things up here to get through, and luckily the numbers came in good. So we need to allocate that money now, and that's part of what we're going to do in this town meeting.
Well, I want to congratulate your office and your assistant town manager, Sue Moquin, and all your department heads. It's always good news if we're going to a town meeting to allocate money, more money that the state is giving us instead of taking things out of budgets. So I know the finance committee and your office and a lot of your department heads have been working together with these warrant articles to propose how to best invest in our town. So let's go through the articles and show how you guys propose to invest the monies. So first article, on Article 1 of the special town meeting warrant, is an article to basically fund the reconstruction of the Central Street Bridge. And for those viewers at home, we're not talking about the railroad bridge on Central Street that's near St. Bridget's. We're talking about the bridge under which the stream runs, the river runs into Island Grove, which is basically between the old Grange Hall, for those townies who know it, where the Buddhist temple is right now, and Glen LaPointe's office building. You'll see this, it's marked with cones right now so people don't park on it. It's really a culvert that goes under Central Street. Mass Highway considers that to be a bridge. What's this all about, Scott?
Well, I think you might remember, or actually, we actually cut this out of last year. It was a pared down version, but we've had engineering firms come out and take a look at that bridge over the culvert, and they found that it's deteriorating, and it's starting to deteriorate faster, at a faster rate than they had previously thought. It's Mass Highway and Mass DOT went out there. They have bridge engineers that took a look at it. And if we don't fix it soon, what'll happen is the rating of the bridge will be reduced to the point where we won't be able to get trucks over there. We won't be able to get fire apparatus over there. So it is a must fix. We need to borrow for it. We are also going to look into any possible grant programs. There are some grant programs out there for culverts and bridges. So if we can, we will find some other funds. But right now, to do this and to do this job right, we need $890,000.
Great. So if the town meeting approves this, you'd be authorized to borrow up to the 890. And as you said, if you can later find a grant, you can just reduce what you're borrowing. But this gives you the ability to borrow the entire 890 to fix that bridge so we don't have to shut down Central Street.
Yes.
That's a 2/3 vote. A lot of the articles for this town meeting require 2/3 votes because they're either borrowing articles or zoning amendments or charter amendments. So that's one of the purposes of this this video, is to try to help you have a working knowledge of these issues as we approach the town meeting. Articles 2, 3, and 4 are road acceptances, a procedure by which new roads that are constructed in new subdivisions are eventually taken by the town to be public ways. Any comments on those, Article 2, 3, and 4?
Really just that, we wanted to do this at the annual. We were unable to have certain public hearings or hearings with the selectmen and the planning board at that time that were required to be done before town meeting. So we took them off. We want to take care of them now. We've had the meetings. The roads were built to our specifications. There's really nothing, nothing else to do about it. It's just that we're accepting them as town roads, and they've all been recommended both by planning and the Board of Selectmen.
Right, so Article 2 and Article 3 are Cook Way and Belcher Street, which are part of the Veterans Place subdivision off of Plymouth Street. And Article 4 is Crabtree Lane, which is actually an extended part of Crabtree Lane. And just for the viewers of up on Crabtree Lane or on Shaw Avenue, I know there's been some discussion about the cut through, the emergency access on Crabtree Lane. That won't be part of this discussion at town meeting. This is purely to accept the constructed roadway as public roadway, so the town will be responsible for future plowing or maintenance. But nothing is changing as far as the emergency access design or use. That would be a completely different decision at a future meeting, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So we won't be talking about that during town meeting.
No, not at all. Okay. It's not part of the article.
No. And we mentioned that only because the question arose during the planning board hearing and the selectmen hearing. Articles 5 through 14 are zoning amendments. Some of them are kind of housekeeping amendments. Some of them have a little more content to them. And again, if you're following along at home, we'll try to go over these. Article 5 is adding something to our sign bylaws. The fire chief and our public safety had asked that for signs, basically commercial signs, that the street address also be added to the sign, required to be added to signs. So if you're at 500 Glenowitz Way and it says town offices, we should also add 500 or 500 Glenowitz Way. Makes it easier for responding units to know that they're going to the right address. Article 6 is inserting a definition of what a swimming pool is in accordance with the Massachusetts State Building Code's definition, basically anything over 24 inches. There are some exemptions. There's been questions about whether hot tubs and jacuzzis would be subject to fencing requirements because they're deeper than 24 inches, but it's my understanding, and I don't want to speak for the building department, but if a hot tub has a lockable cover, then it is exempted from the fencing requirements. Article 7, and feel free to chime in, Scott, at any time. I know you have a lot of working knowledge about building codes and bylaws. Article 7 is just inserting another definition called accessory apartment. That is essentially, in Abington zoning bylaw, we refer to in-law apartments as accessory apartments, and this is just trying to connect the dots there. Article 8 was simply inserting the phrase annual in-law affidavit into section 175.32. There's an existing requirement that anyone who has an in-law apartment has to file a statement every year with the building department as to who is residing in the in-law to make sure it is in fact a family relative. And they just wanted to insert the name of the title of the affidavit into that bylaw. So again, kind of a housekeeping article. Article 9 is changing an article, a zoning bylaw 175.13. Currently, if someone was to own a large lot that maybe had a zoning line that goes through it so that the front part of the lot was in the commercial zone, but the back part was in the residential zone, it used to say that the owner of the property could utilize the zoning for whatever the majority was. So if the majority of the lot was commercial, they could develop the entire lot for commercial. That was changed a number of years ago to say wherever the line was, you could only move it 50 feet. You couldn't move it for the whole lot. This is proposing to give businesses essentially a little bit more wiggle room. It allows the line to be moved 100 feet. And if you wanted to go more than 100 feet, you need to go to the zoning board for a variance or permission to do that. So it's just, I think, trying to encourage some commercial development and streamline it in some areas. All of these have been reviewed by the planning board. All of these zoning bylaws require a 2/3 vote. Moving on to Article 10, it's a proposal to delete a note that was left over in the use chart that's found at the back of the bylaw. The note says that solid waste facilities are prohibited in the technology business district. We don't have a technology business district anymore. We forgot when we deleted the district, we didn't delete that note. The new district in that area, the north side of Route 18, is now called the Business Development District. And if you look in the use chart, it already says that in the business development use chart that solid waste facilities are not allowed. So this note is just kind of superfluous to trying to clean house. Article 11 was a proposal for the planning board to regulate the construction of commercial properties pursuant to approved site plans. They're recommending that we pass over this article because they're still working on the language and the enforcement remedies, working with some input from town council and others. The planning board is basically had a hearing, decided that this article is not really ready yet for acceptance. So they're recommending that we do not accept this, that we pass it over, let them continue to work on this. Article 12 is again kind of cleaning house a little bit. It's updating section 175.32 D4. I'm sure you guys are not at home following along with the zoning bylaws, but for those of you, few of you who might be, this refers to multiple building multiple building condo or apartment projects. It's a requirement that the buildings must be 50 feet away from each other. That again is just cleaning up some of the wording so it's consistent with other wording in the zoning bylaw. Article 13 is updating, for the recommendation of a consultant that the planning board used to review all of these zoning amendments. It addresses the Muppet District, the Multiple Use Plan Development District, which is essentially up on Chestnut Street, Hancock Street and Chestnut Street. Currently, it is intended to be an area that to be developed for low impact commercial development. And it currently requires a minimum 10-acre parcel and 2 acres, 200 feet of frontage. The recommendation is to change that to say that it has to be at least a 3-acre parcel and it's 200 feet of frontage unless the special permit is granted by the planning board, which would be the subject of a public hearing. That again would require a 2/3 vote. And then finally, Article 14 would be the last zoning article in this section. It's a proposal by the planning board trying to update our vegetation bylaw, in which basically says that if you're clearing some land to build a commercial development or sometimes even residential developments, that if you're taking down any large trees, you're required to replace them with new trees. And the planning board wanted a little bit more say on what type of trees get planted, how many trees get planted, and where they get planted. But they have decided that they'd like to pass over this article and continue to work on how it's written. There's a lot of good ideas that they've been talking about, but they don't feel it's ready for approval. So they're going to suggest that the town pass over Article 14. Okay, Article 15 is a general bylaw amendment, which is not a zoning bylaw, but a general bylaw. This is the implementation of a stormwater bylaw, which is kind of connecting the dots with some other things that the planning board and the DPW and the town and the state have been working on to improve wetlands protection, cleaning basically the stormwater management, reduce flooding. And this is another kind of arrow in our quiver to kind of help protect properties and also protect our environment. I don't know if you have anything to add about Article 15, the stormwater bylaw, Scott.
No, just that, yeah, that they've been working on this. I think we've seen bits and pieces of this over the last few years. This is sort of the final piece of the puzzle. This started at the federal level, came down to the state level, and it's sort of mandatory that we do this. And it's great. It's a great idea. It's to protect private property, public property, protect our water supply system. It is good, and it's actually very achievable for anybody who has to deal with it.
Yeah, it sets up a committee to review any plans if someone was to develop it. It only applies to projects that are greater than 1 acre. So if you're doing work in your backyard, you're not going to have to get it approved. If you're doing garden work or things like that, or doing a septic system, you don't have to get it approved. But if it's greater than 1 acre worth of land clearing or land work, then you need to have your plans approved by this committee to make sure that you are taking care of the drainage, especially any changes in topography. There's also exemptions that if you've already got permits from the planning board for a subdivision approval project or a site plan approval, or even if the Conservation Commission has issued an order of conditions for this project, you won't have to get a second approval from the Stormwater Management Committee, but you do have to file a copy of the plans with them. So I think it's very thorough bylaw. I invite you to try to read through it in Article 15, but it is being recommended for approval to the voters at town meeting. So we move on to Article 16 and a couple of them following some money spending articles, transferring money, raising appropriate money. Scott, why don't you take it over from Article 16 moving forward?
So Article 16, that is, we need to fund a buyout package with the chief of police. I hate to call it a buyout because what it is the chief is, he's been here 30 something years, and he's retiring. And this is just out of his contractual obligations and, carried over time and stuff. This is what will be due to him and what we have to pay. And that's all that is. Article 17. This is, this is $15,000 we need to fund a position in the Board of Health. It's currently a part-time position that we just need this person to be full-time. As everybody's well aware, there's a lot going on in the Board of Health, not just with COVID issues, but we also have flu season upon us. And we're trying to, the health director is also trying to get some other programs going in the town, including a hoarding task force, some other things like that. We're also going to, hopefully in the near future, have to set up vaccine stations for COVID, and that may be a double round. So we can't possibly handle the work that we have on the Board of Health right now with what they have. So this is just trying to give them a little more assistance. We're also We're going to try and get this money paid for through the CARES Act, and we're going to seek reimbursement for it. But there's sort of a limited amount of things that they will reimburse. I think this will be one of them, but just in case, we want to get some money allocated for it.
Hey, Scott, if I could interrupt, the CARES Act, could you explain what that is? I've heard you mention that a number of times at the selectmen meeting.
So the money came down from the federal government to the state, and it was money to help relief for COVID-related issues. So it's for PPE, which is the personal protective equipment that we have to supply to our, it may be our health workers, our police, our fire, or even internally at Town Hall. You will see, in order to open up Town Hall, we did a lot. We put up a plexiglass at all the stations. We did some training. We provided people with masks. We make sure that we have mask and hand sanitizing equipment when you come into Town Hall. I'm proud to say we're actually one of the few town halls that has opened to the public in the region, at least in this area. And most town halls are by appointment only, and they're still very scarce on who they're letting in. But we're up and we're fully functioning. But a lot of that is because we had the ability to take care of some of this stuff. So this money, as I said, the CARES Act money, it's been used for the schools. It's to help them with the equipment that they needed. It might be computers, it might be laptops. It's cleaning, it's sanitizing. So there's a lot of different things that came down from the government. In Plymouth County's case, it's being distributed through the Plymouth County Commissioners. There's a certain amount of money and it's allocated by population. So Sue Mokrin, our Assistant Town Manager and Finance Director, has spent a lot of time with the department head sort of looking at what is it that we need, what do we need to do COVID related to stay open, to function, to continue functioning, because this is something that we know that we're going to be dealing with well into the next year. Certainly going to be carrying us through this fiscal year. I don't see full relief before the end of June for sure. So there's a lot of different things and a lot of moving parts, but there's quite a bit of money there that we've been able to use for assistance.
Thank you. So speaking of some of our public safety personnel, Article 18 is related to purchase of new boilers or heating systems for the 2 fire stations in Abington. Talk about that.
Yeah, this is desperately needed. Both stations have ancient, I guess it's not really ancient, but it's fairly old equipment. It's the original equipment. It's not efficient at all, and it's just constantly breaking down. I want to, I know this isn't time sensitive, but just seeing what our guys were out there doing, all of them, not just fire, but police, fire, and everyone else. But they're out all day. They're out at all times of the night. They deserve to come back to a building that's warm. The equipment needs to be kept warm. The trucks have to be kept warm. So these boilers aren't just your typical, household boilers. These are, boiler plants. They're designed to keep the garage bays and everything at certain temperatures, and they're not functioning properly. So we have to fix them. I know people are thinking, well, geez, aren't we looking at building a new fire station? And we certainly are, and they absolutely need one. And I'm going to do everything I can to get that done. But unfortunately, that's going to take, no matter what, 3 years before they're in it, maybe 4. And they cannot work with what they have. It absolutely needs to be fixed now.
So that would be $70,000 to purchase a boiler for each of the 2 stations to kind of carry us through the next 4 or 5 years, minimum, correct, if not longer. Yeah. Okay. Article 19 is a purchase of a new brush truck for the fire department.
Yeah, and this is $11,000 is our match. It's the town's match. A couple of the firefighters did a fabulous job. They took it on their own initiative, and they asked the chief if they could go out and try and get a grant for a brush breaker, and they actually were successful. It's, I don't know, $100,000 vehicle, and we only have to pay $11,000 for it. and it's greatly needed. The one that they do have now is old. It was a hand-me-down surplus vehicle. It's held together. They do what they can to keep it together, but yeah, and it's a necessary vehicle, as we have to get into Ames Knoll. There are wooded areas here. It's definitely it's a great asset for the town to have, and to be able to get it for $11,000. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a FEMA grant that's going to pay 95% of the cost, which is great. And I saw the presentation the fire chief made to the finance committee, and I think to the board of selectmen too, and especially we've been seeing a lot of droughts during our summers lately, where some of the forests becoming like little tinder brushes, and that might be something for the town to consider, especially with the 95% grant funding.
Yep.
Article 20 is to finish the paving at the senior center parking lot. I'm going to transfer some available funds to kind of finish the job up there.
Yeah, when the job is actually finished. The contractor, when he got out there, we had a price for it. The contractor got out there and they pulled up all of the old asphalt, and the underlying subsurface conditions weren't what they expected. In fact, they was very bad. And the concern was they could continue on and honor the price, but we were going to have problems. There was just no way around it. We were absolutely going to have, it was going to be a disaster. So we knew that we have this money available to us. This money is actually in a special fund, a fund that can only be used for senior center projects or projects related to senior housing and things like that. So all we're doing, we're not taking this out of the general fund. This isn't coming out of reserves or anything. This is just coming out of that fund that's sort of earmarked for things like this. But we need town meeting to do it.
Great, and it will be it's been a great improvement to the senior center. And those of you who haven't been there, it's off of Summer Street, right near the railroad tracks. And there's also a dog park up there and pickleball courts. It's developed into a really nice community asset. And I would invite every senior citizen, every resident really, go up and take a look at the senior center. It's a beautiful building the town purchased a number of years ago, and you'll see some of the improvements that have been made over the years. Article 21, this is an article that was submitted jointly by the Board of Assessors and the Treasurer Collector's Office. There's actually 5 different parts of it, but it's all related. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it essentially is increasing some of the exemptions that basically items that allow tax reductions for senior citizens. Some of the benefits that the state laws allow, but we need to take votes to adopt them and implement them in the upcoming years. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, exactly. And again, I think the assessors were hoping we were going to deal with this last year. They didn't get it in on time for the annual. Well, they did, but somehow we missed it. But essentially, this is just kind of bringing us up to date with the state guidelines, with what those thresholds are to make you eligible for some relief. And it really, it only affects the people who need it the most. It affects our seniors, and it's not it won't be any sort of a big effect on our budget or our revenue.
Right, and these updates, if approved, would allow more of our senior citizens to qualify for these exemptions. So I'm sure we'll explain a little bit more in detail if necessary at town meeting, but those 5 updates will be voted as one Article 21. Then we move on to Article 22 regarding the Strawberry Valley Golf Course.
Yeah, they need a new greens machine. I don't know if, hopefully everybody's been up to the golf course. I know they had, I think they just recently had or having Abington Appreciation Day, depending on when you actually see this video, where it's open to all Abington residents. If you just have to call and make a reservation. They just need a piece of equipment. This will come out of their fund. It's not coming out of the general fund. They're self-sufficient with their operation. It is a town department. It's a town-run golf course now, and but this is paid through from their revenues.
Right. I don't know if a lot of people in town recognize it. It is a town-owned golf course, but in the past several years, we actually put it out to bid and had a private company run the golf course. But during this last year, we have a town committee now, Strawberry Valley Golf Course Committee that's running the town golf course with town residents on the committee. So kudos to that committee, those committee members, and they're asking for permission to spend some of the money they've set aside so they can invest in, again, this town asset.
Yeah, and then again, I was just up there. It is an amazing condition. I'm not a golfer, but they do, Renee's doing a fabulous job up there. And I just want to say, it wasn't just, this article's not just for the machine, but it's also, they need some new netting to protect people in the parking lot.
Yes, yes, they do.
Go up there to golf.
I've been thankful on a number of occasions that the netting was in place when I was swinging away, and the netting does need to be updated and replaced, so that article would solve that issue. Article 23 is, as I understand it, at our prior town meeting, the annual town meeting, we asked some of the departments to cut their budgets, including the school department, and now that more money has been confirmed to be available from the state level, the town is suggesting that we reinvest some money back into the school department. Is that right? It's $416,487.
Correct. Yeah. And, again, as we said, going into the previous town meeting, we stripped about $1.5 million out of the budget. Everybody had to give up something, put something on the table. The school department gave up quite a bit, and this isn't even as much as they gave up, but this is the best we can do right now to help supplement the budget, and it's obviously desperately needed.
Great. So that'll be Article 23. That'll be a majority vote. Article 24 is $22,000 to fund a settlement agreement for an injured employee.
Yeah, and that's all it is. There's really not much more I can say about it. We had an injured employee, and this is our settlement. It's recommended by council that we do this.
Article 25 is a new bylaw. We're accepting the provisions of Chapter 44, Section 55C to establish a trust to be known as the Abington Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and to also set up a new bylaw to be added to our general bylaws to kind of create and describe how we will run this housing trust fund that to be set up. Scott, I know you put a lot of work into this to get this up and running. Why don't you give us a little summary of what the Abington Affordable Housing Trust would do for us?
Well, I think if everybody remembers correctly, at the last town meeting, CPC allocated some money, a good amount of money for affordable housing. And that's sort of one of the functions of CPC.
The Community Preservation Act, CPC.
Yeah, exactly. And so that money that is allocated to this affordable housing trust, we didn't actually have the trust set up yet. So what this will allow us to do by establishing this trust, the selectmen will then appoint some trustees. These trustees will have the ability to go out. They can research projects. They can purchase properties. They can sponsor projects, all in the name of building senior housing and affordable housing, which is something that's desperately needed around here. I think, my hopes is this obviously should pass with no problem at town meeting. Our first project will probably most likely be the Center Street School. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to bring in a consultant. We're going to work with the neighbors over there in the neighborhood to see what sort of reuse we can use for that building. We can put it out to a developer through this trust that will come in, purchase that property, and do something there that works for the neighborhood and provides some affordable housing, some senior housing, and maybe some market entry housing. So that's just sort of step one. And from there, if the fire department doesn't use the North Street School, we'll look at that. We'll look at other town properties. But what's great about this is we finally have an avenue to deal with and take care of stuff like that. And it's through this trust.
Right. And just to correct and confirm, it's the Center School and the North School. You misspoke. You said Center Street School and North Street School. Center School and North School. We all know what you're talking about.
I'm still new.
There's no hidden schools out there that we don't know about. But it sounds like a great proposal. And as I understand it, you'd be setting up a committee to run this affordable trust fund. And so you'll be looking for residents who might want to volunteer if this article is adopted, right? The selectmen will appoint some representatives.
Yes, exactly. And I think, once this gets through, and we'll mention it again at town meeting, Yeah, once this gets through, the selectmen will be looking for volunteers to set up the trustees.
That's great. Okay, then moving on to Article 26 of our 27 article warrant. 26 is a town charter amendment. Again, trying to update and clean up some things. And this is just changing some verbiage. Currently in the police chief section, it says that there shall be a chief of police appointed by the town manager for an indefinite term. And the proposed amendment is there shall be a chief of police appointed by the town manager for such term as the parties mutually agree upon. A little bit of semantics, but it kind of updates it to make, this obviously speaks for itself.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was just that, we wanted to make sure that we could put a contract together with a chief, and that there'd be an end date at that where we would redo and renegotiate a new contract.
Right. The implication of saying he'd be appointed for an indefinite term meant that he could stay, he or she could stay as long as they wanted to. And obviously that doesn't work in municipal contract law. So we're changing the wording to make it a little bit more specific. That, however, still needs a 2/3 vote also because it's a charter change. And then we come to Article 27, another proposed zoning amendment. This was allowed in to the warrant at the very end. This is regarding marijuana retailers and delivery only retailers that basically would increase the number of available licenses in the town of Abington. Currently, the zoning bylaw that they seek to change limits the amount of retail licenses, adult marijuana stores, basically, to 2 licenses in the town of Abington. One has already been granted, and one is in the process of going through the approval process. This proposal is from another entity that would like to increase it to, I believe the proposal would end up being 5 licenses. That's what's being proposed. Am I explaining that correctly?
Yeah, exactly. The way it would work is it would be based on 50% of the number of retail licenses that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to issue. So the state sets that number of retail alcohol licenses, the state sets that number based upon population. So currently, with the population that we have, 16,000 plus or minus, we're allowed 9 retail all alcohol licenses or liquor licenses, liquor stores. So if you did 50% of that, it comes out to 4.5, and the proposed bylaw contemplates that we would round it up to the next number. So essentially, it would allow for 5, all still within that overlay district.
Right. And I believe we're required, as a town that voted to approve marijuana retail stores, we're required by the state regulations, because we have 9 licenses, to at least grant 20% of that number, which is 2 licenses. So that is where the town is right now. We're required to have at least 2 licenses. This proposal would require a 2/3 vote to increase the number of licenses to as many as 5 licenses. The planning board has to have a public hearing because it is a zoning amendment. They have had a public hearing on all the prior amendments we spoke about during the show, but they have not had it on this one yet. They'll be doing that before town meeting. I believe that it's scheduled for Friday, October 16th. Yeah. The meeting is on Monday, October 19th. If I have my dates correct there. So we will await the planning board's recommendation on that article. That is the review of all of the articles that have been published on a special town meeting warrant. Again, it's available to you on the town website, abingtonma.gov. If you go to abingtoncam.tv, you can go back and review some of the videotape meetings of the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, and the Finance Committee, where a lot of these issues, if you want to scroll through, you can see a lot more detail. I want to take a minute to thank the members of the Abington Finance Committee. They're all volunteers, and they are assigned the task of reviewing all of these articles and meeting with every single department head and meeting with the town manager staff to go through the entire budget and all these proposals. And they all do it as volunteers for the town. And then they make their recommendation as a committee of volunteer citizens to the town meeting to put forth a motion for the consideration of the voters. The current members of the Finance Committee are Katie Comas, Joe Rojas, Greg Belazarian, Russell Fuller, Patrick Shawn Taylor, Justin Vanest, Matt Sala, Christopher Murphy and Barbara Ray. Matt is the chairman, who you'll hear him speaking a lot and making the motions. Also want to thank Debbie Libby, who's our secretary for FinCom. They do yeoman's work, and they really help make our town meetings work very smoothly because of all the work they do prior to town meeting. And I know you can vouch for them, Scott, and all the work that you and your department heads do.
Yeah.
Also, town clerk wanted us to remind everyone that if you want to vote for in the November 4th presidential election, if you're not already a registered voter, you need to register to vote, and you have to do it by October 24. You can do it at Town Hall. You can go to the State Secretary of State's website if you'd like to. And also, if you would like to vote in person, you can either wait for November 3rd, and you'll be voting on that day, or you can also vote in person from October 17th to October 30th. The voting will be at Town Hall. And if you have any questions about either voting in person early, voting on election day, or to either request an absentee ballot or a mail-in vote, or to drop off your absentee ballot, please call the town clerk's office at 781-982-2112, 982-2112, or you can go on the town website. Once again, go to the town clerk's page and get some more information about that. Always like to have as many people attend town meeting and as many people vote at any of our town or state elections or national elections, because the more voters we have, the better opinions we have, and like to see a very involved citizenship. Scott, anything more that you'd like to add?
No, I think I just throw it out there for Marty Golightly, our health director, that, please wear your mask when you're out, wear your mask in public, wash your hands constantly. And if you have any symptoms, if you're just not feeling good, stay home, see your doctor, call your doctor. Don't take any chances, especially now. There seems to be a slight uptick in cases. And some of them are just because people are not, following these guidelines. So please follow the CDC guidelines, follow our guidelines, and be careful. Take care of yourself.
I want to thank you for saying that. And if you do have questions about COVID-19 or any sort of the health issues that might be involved with that, you can call the Board of Health office. It's 982-2119, 2119. Marty Golightly is our health agent. He and his staff are, I can't believe they're not exhausted already. All the things they try to do to help people and to warn people. And again, for town meeting, if you're not feeling well, if you have any symptoms, or if you've been around someone who may have, is positive, please don't come to town meeting. We need to try to stop the spread. And as Scott just said, you need to wear your mask. That's our #1 form of defense. And then please try to keep your distances, whether you're on the sidelines of a playing field, or if you're in the backyard, or just taking a walk. If you're not around anyone, you're good. That's good. You can take your mask off. But if you're near people, whether they're relatives, best buddies, or strangers, please protect yourself and protect them and protect our community, because the more that virus spreads, we're all just putting further and further strains on our own public safety officers and the nurses and doctors that live within our community. So we can do it together at Abington. We can get through this town meeting safely and securely. I hope this video was of help to you to be prepared, so we can kind of make this town meeting run as efficiently as possible. If you have any questions about the town meeting, you can certainly call Scott. His number is 982-2100. You can call my office, 878-2568. I don't have an office at Town Hall. Or the town clerk's office, again, 982-2112 for any questions about town meeting or voting in the upcoming presidential election. Scott, thank you very much. I want to thank Kevin Tocci and the people at Abington CAM for, again, helping us schedule this and run this, all the technology. Thank you again to the department heads, the finance committee, but most importantly, thank you to our voters who will help us and come to town meeting to make some of these decisions for the future of our beloved community, the town of Abington. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.